And that's interesting because, I mean, a lot of folks think we have one identity. We're trying to find our one true self. There's no such thing as one true self. We are multiple selves all at the same time. But we do have different aspects of ourselves that we want to show certain people. So, that's when they move into talking about self-concept, which is an important concept about self. Yeah. Okay. So apparently, there are 3 dimensions to self-concept. The actual self, the ideal self, and the ought self. Actual self is who you are, I guess, even if it's not static. Ideal self is who we want to be. Ideally, I would be. The ought self is what ought I do. I gotta follow rules. I can't not. Actual self, ideal self, I want to run around naked. Ought self, I can't do that because I'm going to get arrested. And so generally research says we strike a balance, strike a pose between all of these 3 things and who we are, sort of the balance. Freud would talk about that too. Okay, so however, that's not always the case. It does say, however, the more motivated self-presenters are to impress their audience, the more they tend to select aspects of their ideal self. So if I really, really want to impress somebody, maybe I don't show them the actual self, I show them the ideal self. It is also noteworthy that people are often proud of aspects of their actual self, and when the motivation to impress the audience is high, they are likely to make a deliberate effort to display these aspects. No kidding. All right? So I'm glad that this is who I am. So here it is. So self-concept. Looking at who are we, but also we're thinking about who they be. All right, who's my audience? Who's out there? And so we need to think about being strategic in light of, very obviously, other folks. So basically, we're always tailoring ourselves to the situation, to the context. Just like we're always tailoring a speech to a particular audience, we are tailoring us to a particular audience. That's pretty much it. They do say, often the ought self is used. They say, blah, 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 blah. Where is it? The characteristics, for instance, people constructing self-presentations for job searches will emphasize job-related skills and competence, no doubt, whereas those looking for romantic partners will play out to the preferences of those potential partners. What do they prefer? So I'm going to do that. These characteristics often correspond to the ought self, or how people think they should be in order to be successful in a certain social arena. These are the types of people who are apparently attractive in light of our contemporary milieu. Yeah. And then, like, for instance, people say they're honest. A particularly important of such characteristics is honesty. A social norm dictate that people who are as they appear to be. Self-presenters then face pressure to present themselves in a flattering manner while not deviating from the truth substantially or in ways that cannot be justified. I'm a very honest person, but I'm not telling you the truth. People, exaggerate things and stuff on lots of different ways, but apparently so on online dating sites. Still thinking about this idea of construction and implementation of a desired impression. I mean, they talk, all these sort of implementation of self-presentation. We have the content of self, but also the delivery of self, no doubt. Just like any speech or paper has content, delivery, whatever. So, I do think there's some really interesting things on the bottom of 44 that has this sort of difference between face-to-face content and delivery and more online. It says, as mentioned, the key characteristics of face-to-face self-presentation is that it is embodied, meaning that the physical self is directly displayed. By contrast, online self-presentations are disembodied, with self-presenters interacting with others in the absence of the physical self. As a result, information about self-presenters' physical appearance is usually transmitted via photographs or textual self-descriptors. That is, describing their appearance. Some of these descriptors are objective and straightforward, such as mentioning height, weight, age, eye color, hair color. However, other descriptors, such as photographs and subjective assessment of one's appearance, for example, average build or curvy, are malleable and open to interpretation. So basically, even with photographs, they say that our interpretation is only approximate because we're not there physically. So basically, though, on online profiles, they do say that texts, that is language, and pics, photographs, those are the conventional signals or symbols that folks use to present a certain type of self. And also, one thing that's pretty interesting is that there are certain technological parameters in dictating the content of online self-presentation. While many online environments do not instruct users on what information to disclose, the majority of profile-based websites request users to answer a set of predetermined questions. And I think this is mostly the online dating sites. Height, weight, occupation, income. This may place pressure on users to manage the self-presentation of very personal pieces of information that are not normally disclosed in face-to-face environments, like exact age, weight, and income, which is always the way you should start a conversation with somebody you're interested in having a romantic relationship with you. How old are you? How much do you weigh? And how much do you make? You want to go see Night at the Museum? Okay, more stuff. Conveying self to audience, still second part of this larger process, the construction of self. I think it's pretty interesting. Walther's hyperpersonal model, and again, this is where we're moving into self-presentation. We're always online, but the interesting aspects of nature of online communication or CMC that impacts how we go about doing things, particularly with, in this case, self-presentation. So basically, there's these three areas here that makes self-presentation on CMC or via CMC different than face-to-face, they say. Editability. We can revise our self-presentation after it has been posted. Face-to-face self-presentation, we can't take that back. Look like crap one day, you look like crap that day. If you put a profile pic on something and you decide you don't like it, you can change that. You can edit things. Although, asynchronicity is the next thing. There is a lag time between composing a self-presentation and making it available to others for scrutiny. Not always. Sometimes people post, but you have time. When you're face-to-face, there. When you're making decisions on how to present yourself, particularly like on an online dating profile, you have time to think about it. It says asynchronicity is an important technological affordance for all profile-based websites, but it may not be available in more interactive environments like Instant Office and Instant. Reallocation of cognitive resources. Basically, is the ability to focus solely on composing the self-presentation without distractions or interferences. Unlike face-to-face settings where self-presenters need to be mindful of their environment while delivering their self-presentation, online users can compose their self-presentation in the privacy of their own home where they do not have any distractions. So, yeah. The idea of crafting a certain profile and then putting it online is different than hanging out at some sort of cocktail party and running into somebody and having to, oh yeah. And then there's sort of a summary here before it gets to the rest of the stuff, which I think is pretty interesting. Oh, by the way, the all this stuff sort of trends to selective presentation. We can be more selective in how we present ourselves online than we can be